The Court of Appeal is set to hear the case of a former Manchester gang member and convicted murderer. Dwaine George was jailed for 12 years when a teenager was shot dead in Miles Platting. He denied the murder but was found guilty when the jury heard detailed forensic evidence about the gun. We asked Michael Gradwell, once one of the country's most experienced detectives, to investigate the case.
He was a diamond in a rough surrounding who will be sadly missed by everyone who had the pleasure to be.
The murder in 2001 of 18-year-old Daniel Dale shocked Manchester, a city already dubbed Gunchester, as gang warfare claimed 30 lives in just 5 years. Disputes over drugs, money, territory and reputations spiralled into killings. Bullets took criminals and innocents alike. This is the man convicted by a jury of Daniel Dale's murder. Dwaine George served 12 years in prison and was released late last year. He's always denied involvement in the killing and now hopes to clear his name. He was a teenager when he joined the notorious Cheetham Hill gang.
People feared it. You went places, people respect you because they feared it. As a gang, we was known for robberies, drugs, partying. We would get in fights from time to time, and that was the life, really.
Were people scared of you?
Some people were, yeah. Incidents would happen spur of the moment, in town, in different areas. You could just meet a group of guys, something could happen, a confrontation, and we could end up fighting.
The events that led to Dwaine's imprisonment began here on the steps of Manchester Crown Court on the afternoon of Tuesday, the 24th of July, 2001. Another murder, but a different case. The White Boys are supporting the victim's family. It includes 18-year-old Daniel Dale, who is due to give evidence. Dwaine George is part of the Cheetham Hill gang, who are friends of the alleged killers. A noisy scuffle breaks out. One witness alleges Dwaine George made a death threat, but no one else corroborates him. George denies it. The confrontation is the start of a chain reaction. Within 24 hours, Daniel Dale will become an innocent victim, leading to yet another murder trial.
Oh, you man are ready. Should be ready. Should be ready. Should be ready.
1 day later, and there's been another incident. Cheetham Hill has backed down in a street encounter with the White Boys, who outnumbered them. Now they feel they've been disrespected, and some are seeking retaliation. Dwaine George admits he was there, but says he argued against revenge. So, why didn't you retaliate on this occasion?
I said leave it till another time.
And what would that have been?
It could have been anything. It could have just been bats, it could have been sticks, it could have been if people wanted guns, but for me, at my particular moment, that time was, for me, it's not the time.
At his home, Aaron Cunningham stores a gun for Cheetham Hill in return for regular supplies of cannabis. Nathan Loftus, an old school friend of Dwaine George, makes a call.
Coming to get that thing.
Right.
A minute later, Nathan calls back.
The arrangement's changed. I'm not coming. It'll be Dwaine George.
Now Aaron Cunningham is expecting to see Dwaine George. In Miles Platting, the white youths, including some from yesterday's fracas at court, are on edge. They're expecting retaliation. Aaron Cunningham waits in his house, ready to deliver the weapon. Later, he tells police,
I saw the car drive off through the kitchen window. Dwaine was driving, and Ryan was in the front passenger seat.
Later, when this case came to court, Aaron Cunningham, who was under police protection, appeared as a Crown witness. He changed his story. He said,
I didn't see him properly. I didn't really have a proper look on that. I just presumed it was Dwaine.
The red Honda has already been seen once. Suddenly, it reappears further down the road.
I immediately knew it was the Cheetham Hill lads. and I just knew they would have guns.
When you start to analyse what each of the witnesses saw in this murder, you end up with a confusing picture.
Two men got out from the front near side and the rear near side doors of the red car. They both had a gun. They were about 5'10" and both wore masks.
Both rear doors opened and two black males got out. The guy behind the driver's seat was small in height. The second guy was much bigger, about 6 foot to 6'3". Both didn't have anything covering their faces.
I'm trying to find out why witnesses to the same event can often see things completely differently. So I've come here today to the Royal Holloway University near Windsor to speak to one of the world's leading forensic psychologists and hope that they can shed some light on exactly why that is. Why does it happen that there's so many different accounts by these witnesses?
This is not too surprising because the witnesses are not expecting to have their memories tested, so they'll be attending to different things, they'll be experiencing different levels of emotion, they'll have different priorities as to what they will notice. Witnesses find it very difficult to make judgments of, say, height. For example, I'm quite short, so I'm likely to describe you as very tall. The last 2 or 3 decades of research show that eyewitnesses can be unreliable.
When detectives investigate a shooting, they look for gunshot residue, the microscopic particles ejected during firing. These particles can land on the shooter and their clothing. The more particles, the stronger the link between weapon and suspect. In a coat at Dwaine George's house, forensic teams find gunshot residue, but only 2 minute particles. And in a car belonging to Dwaine's mother, they discover a spent cartridge case, which he admitted was his.
I was in a house with my friend. He had a gun. He was messing around with the gun. The gun accidentally went off and he shot me in the foot. And I always kept that cartridge as a reminder of that incident.
What do you find now with gunshot residue? Is it used much as the main thread? The shell case wasn't connected to the murder, but could it have contaminated the coat? A spent cartridge was found in a car that is associated with Dwaine George. Could that have a bearing on anything?
Very much so. One spent cartridge case will contain tens, if not hundreds of thousands of gunshot residue particles. It'll be a repository of gunshot residue. And because these particles are so small, normally 1, 2, 3 microns, they, even from a spent cartridge, they can become easily airborne and contaminate everything around them.
In the years since the murder, courts have become cautious about the value of gunshot residue. So with just 2 particles of the dust-like material, was it reliable evidence? Today, if an investigation found this sort of gunshot residue evidence, as an expert witness, what would you be advising the police?
I would be advising the police that those levels are so low that you really can't come to any conclusion. In effect, they're insignificant.
Did you murder Daniel Dale?
No.
Do you ever think about the family of Daniel Dale?
Yeah, all the time.
Daniel himself?
Yeah.
Do you feel any responsibility for his death?
I partly feel responsible because it was my group of friends that was actually responsible for this murder.
Dwaine George's case was prepared by law students in Cardiff working for the Innocence Project, set up to free people wrongly imprisoned. He converted to Islam in jail and achieved a first-class honours degree in social sciences. He's out of prison, but he can't escape his past. What do you feel about the friends who've, you say, has let you rot in jail?
There's definitely a sense of resentment. But at the same time, there was a code that we had amongst ourselves. We don't grasp. It was just an expected thing, it was a norm. That's why if you did crash, there would be such bad repercussions against your family, your loved ones, because it was a golden rule. And as much as now, as a mature adult, I see the fallacy of them values, they were the values that we lived by at the time.
Coming up, why Cumbrian artist Percy Kelly died penniless. He'd write to somebody a really nice letter with an illustration on and say, you know, I'm really missing that painting. Do you think I could have it back?
There are just 4 weeks to go before the new inquests get underway into the deaths of the 96 Liverpool fans who died in the Hillsborough disaster in 1989. Their families want a different result from the original accidental death verdicts. After campaigning for a quarter of a century, they have spent the last few months in a desperate search for new witnesses and evidence, as Andy Gill reports. The Court of Appeal is set to hear the case of a former Manchester gang member and convicted murderer. Dwaine George was jailed for 12 years when a teenager was shot dead in Miles Platt.
Lives in just 5 years. Disputes over drugs, money, territory and reputations spiralled into killings. Bullets took criminals and innocents alike. This is the man convicted by a jury of Daniel Dale's murder. Dwaine George served 12 years in prison and was released late last year. He's always denied involvement in the killing and now hopes to clear his name. He was a teenager when he joined the notorious Cheetham Hill gang.
He was a diamond in a rough surrounding who will be sadly missed by everyone who had the pleasure to be.
The murder in 2001 of 18-year-old Daniel Dale shocked Manchester, a city already dubbed Gunchester, as gang warfare claimed 30.
He denied the murder, but was found guilty when the jury heard detailed forensic evidence about the gun. We asked Michael Gradwell, once one of the country's most experienced detectives, to investigate the case.